Right now, if your phone died in an unfamiliar parking lot, you'd probably struggle to find your own car. You circle the aisles, you second-guess every turn, you're lost in a space smaller than a football field. Now picture doing that across a continent. No signs, no phone, no one to ask, and getting it wrong doesn't mean you're late. It means you don't come home. For most of human history, finding your way wasn't a convenience feature. It was the difference between eating tonight and starving. And somehow, with absolutely no technology, people crossed entire oceans and never wrote down a single direction. Here's the part that sounds impossible until you understand it. This wasn't guesswork, and it wasn't some mystical sixth sense. It was a real, physical system inside your skull, and you still have it right now, sitting mostly unused. In 2014, scientists John O'Keefe, Maybrit Moser, and Edvard Moser won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering how this works. Deep in your brain, there's a structure called the hippocampus, and inside it are placed cells and grid cells, neurons that fire in patterns based on exactly where your body is in space, like an internal coordinate system running constantly in the background. You're not imagining your way through the world. You're mapping it, cell by cell, whether you notice it or not. And this system responds to how hard you use it. In the early 2000s, researcher Eleanor Maguire at University College London scanned the brains of London's black cab drivers, the ones who spend years memorizing every street in the city to pass a test called the knowledge. Their hippocampi were physically larger than average people's, and the longer someone had been driving, the bigger the effect. Their brains had grown new tissue purely from the demand of never getting lost. Now imagine that demand isn't a job requirement. It's daily survival, every single day, for your entire life, going back for 100,000 years. Ancient humans weren't unusually gifted at this. They were unusually practiced, because the alternative was dying in unfamiliar territory with no way back. In Australia, Aboriginal communities encoded entire travel routes, sometimes thousands of miles long, into songs. These are called songlines, and they're not poetry, they're functional instructions, water sources, landmarks, hazards, and turning points, all stitched into rhythm and melody so they could be remembered precisely and passed down for generations without ever being written. Researchers studying these songlines have found the geography they describe lines up with real terrain features with startling accuracy. A person walking a songline isn't following a vague feeling. They're following a memorized, testable map that happens to live in music instead of on paper. If the land itself could sing, this is probably what it would sound like. But memorizing land is one thing. Try that in a place with no land at all. In the Arctic, Inuit hunters navigate across sea ice and open tundra where a blizzard can erase every visual landmark in minutes. So they read something almost nobody else notices: wind-carved ridges in snow called wayouts, small parallel ripples that consistently point in the direction of the prevailing wind. Once you know how to read them, they work like a compass you can feel with your feet in total whiteout conditions, when your eyes are useless. Get that reading wrong out there, and there's no do-over. That's not a skill you learn for fun. That's a skill you learn because the alternative is freezing to death a mile from where you meant to be. And then there's the challenge that shouldn't have been solvable at all: open ocean, where there are no landmarks, no trails, no wind ripples in solid ground, just water in every direction. Polynesian navigators solved it anyway. They built what's called a star compass, memorizing the exact point on the horizon where dozens of specific stars rise and set, then using those points to hold a bearing through an entire night. During the day, when the stars disappeared, they switched to reading ocean swells, distinct wave patterns that bend and bounce off islands hundreds of miles before you can see them, letting a skilled navigator feel land approaching through the rhythm of the boat itself. In 1976, a traditional voyaging canoe called the Hōkūleʻa sailed over 2,000 miles from Hawaii to Tahiti using nothing but these exact methods, guided by master navigator Maupielug, to prove modern scientists wrong when they'd claimed this kind of navigation was too imprecise to be real. It wasn't luck. It was a complete, working instrument built entirely out of memory and observation. Desert navigation worked the same way, just with a different set of instruments. Bedouin travelers crossing the open sand read the shape of dunes, which are sculpted by prevailing winds into consistent, directional ridges, then cross-check that against star position at night and the angle of sunlight during the day. No single clue was ever trusted alone. It was always at least 2 or 3 signals confirming each other, dune shape plus wind plus stars, the same way a pilot today checks multiple instruments before trusting any one of them. This wasn't wandering with good instincts. It was a layered system, built and rebuilt with every single crossing, refined enough that entire trade networks depended on it working correctly, trip after trip, for centuries. Here's the uncomfortable twist. That entire system, the one your ancestors trained every day just to stay alive, is still sitting in your head right now, mostly dormant. Researchers studying GPS use have found that people who rely heavily on turn-by-turn navigation show measurably reduced activity in the hippocampus during wayfinding tasks. And the more someone depends on being told exactly where to turn, the weaker their independent sense of direction tends to get over time. Your ancestors' hippocampus was working overtime just to get them home. Yours might be working overtime just to remember not to miss the exit the app already told you about. You didn't lose the ability. You just stopped needing it enough to keep using it. So here's the full picture. For nearly all of human history, finding your way home wasn't handed to you. It was built, cell by cell, inside a brain structure that physically grows every time you use it. Aboriginal Australians turned an entire continent into memorized song. Inuit hunters read wind and snow they couldn't even see clearly. Polynesian sailors held a bearing across thousands of miles of open ocean using stars and the feel of waves against a hull. Bedouin travelers cross-checked dunes, wind, and stars like instruments on a dashboard, because no ancient navigator ever trusted a single clue alone. None of them had a map. What they had was practice, repetition, and a brain built to reward exactly that. So next time your phone tells you to turn left in 400 feet, remember, somewhere underneath that notification, you're still carrying the same equipment they were. You've just stopped asking it to work.